Good morning. It has been a while, and I know I'm supposed to eventually upload some stuff, but I just been, working, and I hopped on the internet, you know, last night, and I heard all the noise. Sounds like there's a whole lot of, I call them little fires going around, and it's really sad. You know, everybody seems to be speaking on things as if they're trends, um, you know, and it's their prerogative. So I guess I'll chime in. Um, First of all, I want to start off by saying I do run a nonprofit organization, and I will be sending my information off in hopes to obtain a grant um, for my programs. Um, with that being said, I just want to make sure that whatever I talk about, I want to make sure that it's viewed from a non biased standpoint. And, you know, uh, Jimmy Kimmel, we'll start there. He was put on leave uh, due to some comments that he made about a young man's assassination. And I didn't know the man personally. I know there are some personal opinions going on about the young man who was a Caucasian. He seemed to be a follower of Jesus Christ. He seemed to be a family person. But you never really know a person. You can go over the interviews and things like that. But what I also know, being as young as I am and coming from where I'm from, the political realm is not a easy realm to be in, um, and there are a lot of people, that you could piss off, whether it be the common folk, whether it be a business person, but what I do believe in the interest of our judicial system, which I'm hoping, can correct itself with a little help over time, is due process and the fairness of due process. And it would be kind of hard, if you accuse someone of, murder to get any form of due process. Freedom of speech is something that is valued in this country. It is not it's not a dictatorship, and then I know it's easy to, you know, get sucked in with, the power, but the luxury of America, which is sometimes I think is like a gift and a curse, but the luxury of it is the people get to change their minds, and the people, they get to make decisions on what happens to them and with them. And again, I think that is a problem and a solution because, 8 years, you have to get everybody on board. You have to get Congress on board. You have to get the people on board. That's not a lot of time to go through with actual change. So I think, like I said, I think that is a double-edged sword on, making progress because the American people have to then, deal with someone new over and over again and their political ambitions and things that they want. So, you know, but it does, help. A lot of people are upset about the tariffs and things like that. Um, but again, no one's really explaining, did you get upset when they took the majority of the manufacturing jobs overseas? You know, um, when they took a chance for someone who may not have had a regular person, not someone with extreme talent, um, a regular person who just wanted to feed their families and only had a high school diploma. Those type of opportunities for people to retire with those kinds of jobs, and you know, most people take the products elsewhere because it's less expensive to make. But it also benefits countries because, they can employ people. So, you know, um, when you're, speaking on people's deeds and what they're doing, I just want to make sure there's a clear, people are using clear pictures because it's so easy for people's emotions, to get the best of them. I was in the gym yesterday, and this guy came in, and it looked like he had on a uniform, and the uniform he had on was of the young man, sort of, not exactly, but similar. And I'm like, what are we? It seemed like he just wanted some space to himself. Would you need to scare people to do that? I don't know. But it was similar. And, with so, I have learned, again, and I will reiterate, when you're playing with people's lives, when you're playing with their money, it's not something that you should take lightly. Um, their money, their families, and things like that. Um, and I'm thinking, what is this? A uniform for, fear and maintaining free speech is a thing, but you have to consider not whether you're employed as well. And, if you work for a company, and even if you work for a media company, you're still employed by the company, you know. Um, Freelance journalism is a thing, you know. Somebody who's willing to hire you, to speak your mind, and never everybody doesn't have to agree with you, you know. That's the thing, and that's the beauty of it. This lady spoke to me, and she was like, seriously, she seemed really frustrated. But she was discussing, she was worried about how she was going to, feed her kids and do groceries and things like that. And, it really concerned her. But here's the thing, you have to talk to certain people, because some of those issues are not the issues for everyone else. You know, some people have gone through their lives, having to eat chitlins. And if you know what chitlins are, you would know that they're pig intestines. So when you're done eating all the good food, you know, you were kind enough, someone was kind enough, not you personally, someone was kind enough to give people the intestines, which was full of duty, fecal matter, which was, it's a good thing and a bad thing, again, because it did help build up your immune system. So when you look at an African American and, you get upset about, their immune system don't. Like, you can't get upset about their immune system. They have been eating fecal matter, which of course builds up an immunity and resistance to fecal matter. So, when polio was spreading around, you would look, at the African American community and like, why aren't these people getting polio? Because, your ancestors were feeding them shit, you know? So they built up an immune system to fecal matter, and it's not fair to be upset with them or want to cause extra harm to them for something that, was genetically given to them, out of caring and out of an insult, you know? Um, and, some people in other countries, they eat fish eyes, they eat the worst parts. And when you find a culture that eats the worst parts, you can tell they've really been through something. And, and you uphold it as a delicacy because, you won't lose your mind, you know, if you start to starve or if you think you're going to starve, you're not going to lose your mind. You're not going to go crazy because, you know, you've learned to make fecal matter taste good, um, or traces of fecal matter taste good. And I think that is really important to address. I want to thank you all for tuning in today. It's pretty short. I kept it short and hopefully to the point. Please support Mission Sisters. We are dedicated to progression, and we're dedicated to helping those who feel like they have to do it by themselves. And we know that they don't, but you can't stop those feelings. And what better than a company that has been through those things and knows the importance of those emotions and that emotional process. You have a great day. Ciao, Bella.